right, I think we are on live at the moment. Welcome to everyone who's just joined me in today's session of IELTS reading, where we're going to be looking at super smart strategies to answering not just yes, no, or not given questions accurately, but also true, false, not given questions correctly. Okay, so let's kick off with our lesson objectives for today. So by the end of this lesson, we are going to hopefully understand the common problems that are related to answering this type of task with IELTS reading, either yes, no, not given, or true, false, not given questions. They are very similar to each other, not quite the same, but similar to each other. So we're going to look at the subtle differences between the two task types. Okay, and hopefully by the end of today's lesson you'll be able to apply easy solutions to this task type, so you won't get too bogged down on answering questions to this when you come across them. We're also going to strategize in terms of reading for gist as well as for overall text structure to identify where certain answers are located. This is quite important for you if you are to complete the questions within a specific time period. So make sure that you practice using this strategy as much as you can. And then we are going to train ourselves to find textual evidence to distinguish between these yes, no, not given types of responses, or true, false, not given types of responses. Okay, so let's start off with looking at certain common problems that candidates tend to have when faced with this task type. Now, primarily, a lot of people are stuck with using this, with answering this type of question. Not just this type, but a lot of, other types of questions, because quite often a lot of candidates do not know much about the topic. Now, you're not expected to have specialized knowledge on the topic or expert knowledge on the topic, but if you have a little background knowledge on it, that would definitely help you. So if the topic is about medicine, then I think if you have some sort of background knowledge on developments of the medical field, I think that would help you a lot compared with someone who doesn't know anything much about it. So being up to date with certain events would definitely put you, I think, in a stronger position when it comes to answering certain questions, and even trying to work out the vocabulary that's in the text. Apart from that, some candidates fail to understand the text structure. So you need to be very clear on locating on where the main ideas are for each paragraph, particularly if you're given a very long passage. Quite often people tend to get too distracted by the length of the passage because they think that they do not have enough time to cover all of the words in the passage to reach the correct answer, or to write down the correct answer in this specific amount of time. So this is where you need to strategize. You need to first of all look for important clues. I mean, if you're given a diagram or a visual piece of information like a picture or a graph or whatever, that would somehow give you an idea of what the topic is all about. Sometimes you're given a title and a subheading that would also give you clues as to what the topic's about, and if you look at different paragraphs, you can normally locate what each paragraph is about from the main ideas in each paragraph. You don't have to read every single word in the paragraph, particularly if you don't have much time to do this. Also, not being able to find evidence is another common problem. A lot of people, what low band scoring candidates tend to do is they spend too much time looking for the answer when sometimes the answer isn't there. You see, and so because of that, they would have already sacrificed precious time that could have been given to statements that would, correctly point out where the evidence is in terms of yes or true answers or no or false statements. So if you can't find the answer, that means most likely it means that it's not there. So don't get too bogged down with not being able to find this evidence. And also, if you're not able to find something, it doesn't necessarily mean that something is false or no. So you need to distinguish the differences between what is false and what is not given. And not being able to find the evidence would very likely mean that the information is not given in the passage. Okay, another common problem is not following instructions when you write your answers. So this is very straightforward. You have two task types, either yes, no, not given, or true, false, not given. This is, after all, a life-changing test for some people. And my advice always is to play it safe. Don't try to be adventurous and write false for no or true for yes. And interchange these two, because there are differences in meanings in the statements between true, false, not given, and yes, no, not given. So if they ask you to write yes, please write yes. Some students have asked me, is it okay for me to write Y instead of yes or N instead of no? That's fine. But like I said, if I were to be sitting for the test myself, I would very likely try and play it safe and follow instructions to the letter. So that means if they ask you to write yes, I would personally spell it out Y-E-S instead of putting Y, and risk not knowing whether or not my marks would be cut because I've decided to just put a Y instead of a yes. But excuse me, to put your mind at rest, I think you can put Y-N NG or TF NG for those. But like I said, try to follow instructions to the letter, because being able to do well in the test is not just answering questions correctly, but also being able to follow instructions very well. Okay, now here is another common problem where a lot of candidates tend to focus too much time on not given. I think this goes back to what I was mentioning earlier about not being able to find evidence. So if you are not able to find proof of what was said in the statement, then put it down as not given. Okay, and move on to the next statement, rather than spending too much time looking and wasting time for something that's just not there. All right. Another issue here is candidates, depending too much on matching their keywords between the text and the statement. You need to make sure that you understand the statement as a whole. You can't just match the keywords from the statement to the keywords in the text, because if you don't understand the statement as a whole, it might mean that you don't really understand exactly what is true or what is false and what it actually means. So try not to focus too much attention on matching the keywords. See if you understand the statement, what the statement is saying to you, and if you find matching keywords from the text, that's fine. But some of these keywords can also be distractors, to keep you from getting to the right answer. So you also need to read around those keywords to see whether or not they match. If they match the words in the statement, if the meaning, not the keywords, if the meaning matches the statement, then that could be a yes answer or a true answer. If it is the opposite or contradicts the statement, it could be a no answer or a false answer. Okay? So, let's take a look at how we could solve these common problems. Let's take a look at the first easy solution. Okay, now earlier on I've mentioned that having some background knowledge is important, or is very helpful for you to understand what the topic is about, which is fine. But in the Ielts reading, yes, no, not given, true, false, not given, or any other types of questions, you need to base your answers on the text. Okay, not on your background knowledge. No doubt your background knowledge may help, and whatever you know may not match what is given to in the text, or you might disagree with what's written on the text based on your background knowledge. But that's not the point. The point is you need to find evidence from the text, whether you know much about the topic or not. So do not assume that something is wrong or something is correct based on your background knowledge, based on what you know that's common sense to you about the topic. That's not the point of this Ielts reading test. So make sure that you can find proof or evidence that should be the basis of your answer in the statement. Okay, so very important this. Next, you need to make sure that you pay attention to qualifiers. What I mean here are words like all, or frequently, or sometimes, mainly in the statement, and sometimes in the text as well. And also verbs like can, is, may, could, and so on. Now, what do I mean by this? Let's take a look at some examples here of certain statements. Starting with the first one. Alternative practitioners always acknowledge the importance of the placebo effect. Now, if this is given in the statement, you have to pay careful attention to the word always. If the text has a very similar sentence to this, but with the exception of the word always, and it could be something like sometimes acknowledge the importance, or at times, and so on. This meaning then would not match the words in the text. Okay, so always here you should understand that it refers to something that happens all the time. But if it's not there in the text, chances are this is incorrect, or false, or not true. Okay? Another qualifier that you should look at are words like some or might. Some surgical operations might be carried out by alternative practitioners. Some. Does the text indicate all surgical operations, or a majority of surgical operations? If that's the case, then the statement does not match what's in the text. Or what about the verb might? Might be carried out by alternative practitioners. Does the text say are always carried out, or does it leave out the words might be altogether and say some surgical operations are carried out by alternative practitioners? So if it's the case that the text says are carried out by alternative practitioners, it might mean that this text, or the text doesn't match the information given in the statement. So watch out for these as well. Another word to be careful of are words like claim. It is claimed, it is suggested, it is found, and so on and so forth. So very important that you are clear on what it means here. It is claimed that alternative therapy can help cure patients, compared to what it says. It might say in the statement, which could go along the lines of alternative therapy can help cure patients, or alternative therapy helps cure patients, or something like that. So it is. Is it a claim by some doctors, or is it a factual statement? So you have to actually distinguish the difference between some of these words, the meanings of what's given in the statement and what you see in the text. If they match, then, like I said, the answers should be correct. And if they don't match the answers, that means the statement might be wrong or false. And if you can't find evidence there, that means it's just not there at all. Okay. Now, for this part of the test, where you have to match yes, no, not given, true, false, not given statements to the statements in the text, I think the thing that you need to be careful of is the technique that you use. Try this kind of task does not require you to skim and scan a lot. Okay, what you need to do is to find the part of the text that shows you evidence of that statement, yeah, and focus on that part of the text. There is no need for you to skim and scan the whole entire passage altogether. You just need to locate where that answer can be found that matches the statement and focus on that area alone. Okay, not other parts of the text. However, this is not always the case. You might find something located in a different part of the text, but this hardly ever happens. So try not to skim and scan. Focus on the part of the text to understand whether the answer is a match, not a match, or it's just not given at all. Okay, I think this is a reminder of what I've mentioned to you earlier. The problem that some candidates tend to have is that they tend to match the keywords, not the meaning. So make sure that when you see the statements, make sure that you understand what the statements mean, and then look at the text to locate a similar meaning, not a similar word. Okay? Also, if you can't find the answer, as I've mentioned to you before, move on and write not given. Okay? You have very little time to actually focus on just that one question that you may not be able to find at all. So make sure that you don't spend longer than 2 minutes looking for something that's not there. And if it's not there, just write not given. Okay, and move on to the next question. Now, you also need to know that the answers from the statements appear in the same order as in the passage. So try not to look back when you move on to the next statement. Okay, like I said, this goes back to what I mentioned to you earlier on. Do not skim and scan. There's no point in skimming or scanning the entire text just for that one particular statement, because they usually appear in order in the passage. The answers appear in the same order in the passage. Okay, so I hope everything is clear. Now, another thing that you need to understand excuse me, got a bad throat today, is that yes, no, not given questions are slightly different, because they usually deal with the opinion of the writer, whereas true, false, not given deal with facts. Okay, so that's the slight difference between the two. But to go back to what I was saying earlier, if you're asked to write yes, no, not given, do not take the risk of writing true, false, not given, because as I've mentioned, doing well in the Ielts test is not just writing accurate answers and having good time management, but it's also about following instructions, the skill of following instructions. Okay, um, let's move on to steps on dealing with this kind of task. Okay, again, a reminder. Make sure that you know what you have to deal with. Okay, do you have to write yes, no, not given? Or do you have to write true, false, and not given? So always, always read the instructions carefully. Make sure you know what type of question it is. Okay, the next thing that you need to do is to read the whole sentence and not just the keywords. It's very important for you to understand the statements um, in the form of the whole sentence rather than looking at isolated keywords. And as I've mentioned as well, make sure that you pay attention to qualifying words like some and always and all of that. Okay, the third step is to make sure that you can identify the synonyms in the text. Now, obviously, going back to step number 2, these synonyms might be your keywords, and they will help you to identify the matching part of the text. However, these synonyms might not reflect the correct answer. So, what takes priority here is understand the whole sentence rather than understanding or matching the synonyms to the keywords in the statement. Okay, so once you have figured out where the answers are located, possibly located, focus on that part of the text to help you arrive at a good conclusion. Okay, so you need to match the statement with the correct part of the text. And then afterwards, you need to read the statement again and make sure that it's either true, false, or yes or no. Now, you need to bear in mind that the meaning from the statement should match exactly what it says on the text for it to be true or for it to be yes. The meaning should exactly match that. Okay? And afterwards, you could underline or circle the word if it's true, false, or yes or no answer. Because once you have located that evidence, it will help you to focus on it and look back at it again later. Okay? So when you look back on it later, be careful that there are no words that you might have overlooked, like qualifying words, like, as I've mentioned to you, some, always, may, and so on and so forth. And finally, if you're not really sure of the answer, just write it as not given. Okay, don't spend more than a couple of minutes on one particular statement alone. Okay, so I hope these steps would be useful for you to apply when you do your reading practice next time. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take a look at an example text with a title and a subheading and the first 2 lines of the text. Okay, I'll just give you a minute to look at this part that's in the text. Okay, now, can you identify the difference between conventional and alternative medicine based on just looking at the title and the subtitle alone, or the subheading? What's the difference between conventional medicine and alternative medicine? Now, if you know something about this, then I think you would be at an advantage, because the topic might discuss something on this, and you might know some topic vocabulary related to this. So just to let you know, if you have no idea about the differences between these two, conventional medicine Excuse me. Okay, conventional medicine usually offers physical explanations for illnesses, and it's based on scientific methods. Alternative medicine, on the other hand, it offers a broader range of explanations for illnesses that may include, mental cause or spiritual causes. So that's the basic difference between conventional and alternative medicine. However, the theories that have been used to explain the effects of some alternative approaches are questioned by scientists. So some scientists don't actually believe in the effectiveness of alternative medicine, okay, because they rely on physical facts, scientific methods, whereas alternative medicine doesn't rely on that. It covers a broader spectrum of causes, including mental and spiritual. Okay, so if you're still a little bit lost, let's dig deeper into this topic here. We'll focus on vocabulary. Okay, now here I've got a range of words related to either conventional medicine or alternative medicine. See if you can match which words go where. So if you have a pen and paper handy, I think that would be quite useful for you to try and do this, work this out on your own. So I'm just going to give you maybe about 2 minutes to match them. Okay? I'm just going to start the timer for myself. 2 minutes. Okay. All right, let's try to measure your answers according to um, what I've come up with. For conventional medicine, you should be able to match certain jobs. Okay, before we reach the answers, let's take a look at what each of these jobs actually mean. Let's have a look at some of the words here. Okay, now beginning with um, an acupuncturist, as you can see from the first picture, This person treats physical and emotional illnesses by applying needles to specific points in the body. So, would that be a conventional type of medicine or an alternative type of medicine? If you have put it down as an alternative type of medicine, I think that you have got this absolutely correct. Okay. Next, we have the anesthetist. Sorry, I hope I've pronounced that correctly. Um, Anesthetist, perhaps, I think, is a person who gives anesthetic, which is a drug that causes temporary unconsciousness before an operation. Okay, so this person would be practicing conventional medicine. So if you put that there in the right column, then you would be absolutely right. Okay, next we have the aromatherapist, as you can see from the picture there. Okay, now an aromatherapist basically uses essential oils to provide relaxation and, treating minor sort of physical illnesses, perhaps like headaches or stress and so on. So an aromatherapist would be someone who practices alternative medicine. So if you've put that in this column, I think you should give yourself a pat on the back as well for getting the answer right. Okay, let's move on to certain other words. Now, a doctor, I think, is a common word that everybody should know. Obviously, is a person who is a trained practitioner of conventional medicine. Okay, so if you've put that down under conventional medicine, you are right again. And then we have the herbalist on the right. Now, what is a herbalist? Now, a herbalist basically uses plants and substances that are taken from plants to treat illnesses. Okay, so if you believe that a herbalist is someone who practices alternative medicine, again, you are absolutely right. Okay, so a herbalist goes right here. Now, next comes the complementary practitioner. Now, what can you tell from the picture here? Well, a complementary practitioner is anyone, basically anyone who works in the field of alternative medicine. Okay? So, if you have put that as alternative medicine, then you are also right. Okay, let's look at the last three types of jobs. We have the surgeon. What is a surgeon? A surgeon is a doctor who specializes in medical operations which involve cutting open the body. So a surgeon would be someone who is a conventional practitioner. Okay, a person who practices conventional medicine. Okay, and then we have the physician, which is a doctor. Okay, especially one who is a specialist in general medicine. So, obviously, this person practices conventional medicine. And then we have a rheumatologist. Let's take a look at the picture of a rheumatologist here. Now, what can you understand from that picture? Okay, now this person is a doctor as well, but a doctor who specializes in problems that involve muscles and joints. So where do you think that goes under? Conventional or alternative medicine? If you've put him under conventional medical practitioner, you are absolutely right. Okay, so here we have a list of people who practice conventional medicine and another list of people who practice alternative medicine. Now let's see if you're able to put these words in context. Okay, before we start looking at um, the text proper. We'll begin with the text structure. The text structure. Now, if you look at this passage called The Power of Nothing, um, it can be divided into three main sections, A, B, and C. Now, I'm going to show you the text, and I would like you to mark where each section starts. Okay, so if you've got a pen and paper or a pencil and paper for you to make notes, that would be quite useful for you, because this task is intended to show you the importance of recognizing structure in Ielts passages, and it can provide a useful map for you to find the location of your answers. So, if you've got your pen and paper handy, that would be good. Now, just one, just a little bit of a note here for you to remember. Now, in most cases, you should read the passage very quickly first to get an idea of how it's organized. Yeah, so I need you to try not to spend too long on locating where each section starts. Okay, so we'll look at A, how to become a success in alternative medicine. B, the placebo effect, what it is and how it works. Or C, integrating alternative and conventional medicine. Where can you find all of these information, A, B, and C? Okay, so I'm just going to show you the first part of the text from line 1 to line 11. I'm going to give you 1 minute to look through this. Okay, 30 seconds actually, not 1 minute. Okay, next page for the next 30 seconds. Okay, 30 seconds for this page. Okay, next page. Okay, I think that's the last one. Okay, let's go back to whether or not you have been able to identify where each section starts um, for the whole text. Now, A, how to become a success in alternative medicine. You should be able to find that this section starts at the beginning of the text with the words want to devise a new form of alternative medicine. Okay, that's the first part of the text. Okay, and if you go back to section B, the placebo effect, what it is and how it works, you should be able to locate this section at the beginning of the third paragraph. Okay, let's have a look. Okay, it begins with the words, placebos are treatments that, so that should be section B. Now, for section C, integrating alternative and conventional medicine, you should be able to locate this at the beginning of the 8th paragraph with the words, the question is whether. Okay, so let's try to locate that. Okay, so this is part of the third section. Okay, integrating alternative medicine with conventional medicine. So you can see that this body here, the whole passage here is divided into 3 main sections. So if you are able to spot these easily, then you should be able to find, the evidence of the statements quite easy to locate. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the importance of finding evidence to distinguish between false and not given information. Okay, so let's take a look at the first statement. Alternative therapists should give free treatments. Alternative therapists should give free treatments. All right, now, where do you think? Okay, let's take a look at section A first. Section A is about how to become a success in alternative medicine. Okay, now does the writer mention anything in section A about free treatment, money, or payments? Let's take a look at section A again. Does it say anything about money, free treatments, or payments? Let's scan through that. Okay, that's the last of section A. Okay. Anything? All right, you have to be quick about this. Okay, so if you look back at um, let's see now. Okay, make them pay you out of their own pockets. Okay, let's see if I can change the color of this. Yeah, make them pay you out of their own pockets. You can see from this statement here that the writer advises new therapists to make them pay you out of their own pockets. So this suggests that the writer disagrees with the statement. Okay, let's take a look back at the statement again. It's quite a long text here. Alternative therapists should give free statements. So, based on the evidence, we know that the writer disagrees with the statement that alternative therapists should give free treatment. He disagrees with that because from the text you can see that he says, make them pay you out of their own pockets. Okay? Okay, let's take a look at the second statement. Alternative therapy is particularly popular among young people. Now, can you find any evidence in section A that relates to this statement? Alternative therapy is particularly popular among young people. Let's try to find that out from section A, which begins here on the first page. Let me repeat the question or the statement. Alternative therapy is particularly popular among young people. Okay, that's the end of section A. The statement is alternative therapy is particularly popular among young people. So can you find any evidence in section A that relates to this statement? Okay, if you say that it's not there, then you are absolutely right. There is no mention of young people in section A. No mention at all in the text. So because of this, there is no information given in the passage about the statement that alternative therapy is particularly popular among young people. So it's not given. Yeah, because there's no mention of young people here. Alright? So that should not take you longer than 2 minutes to actually come to that conclusion. Okay. I hope so far that's been a helpful start for you if you're not sure how to go about finding evidence for what you're supposed to answer. We're going to start off with an example Ielts practice task. Okay, starting with questions 1 to 5, which is a yes, no, or not given type of question or task. Now, before we begin, let me just remind you to look for evidence to support whether the statement is true or false. If you cannot find any proof, choose not given. Okay, simple as that. So, based on what we've just done about alternative therapists or alternative therapy, let's use the same strategy to decide whether these statements agree with the views of the writer or disagrees with the views of the writer, or it's just simply not given there. Okay, so remember, yes, no, not given usually relates to views of the writer. Yes, no, not given. True, false, not given usually deals with facts. Okay, let's start with the first question. Creating and practicing a new alternative therapy can be a well-paid job. Yes, no, or not given. Okay, let's look for this answer in section A. Let me see if I can try and copy and paste the statement. Oops. No, it's a bit difficult for me to do that. Okay, anyway, if you, like I said, if you have a pen and paper handy, it might be a good idea for you to copy this down quickly. Creating and practicing a new alternative therapy can be a well-paid job. Okay? Got that? Can it be a well-paid job? Anything here about a well-paid job? Okay, if you say yes to that answer, you are absolutely right, because you can find evidence that says, well, yes, it could. Yeah? It could earn you enough money for a good living. Okay, so the writer suggests that it could earn you a living, a good living. So let's go back to the statement. Okay, so if you've put your answer down as yes, you are absolutely right. Creating and practicing a new alternative therapy can be a well-paid job. Yes. Okay, let's take a look at the second statement. It is dishonest to claim that alternative therapy can help cure patients. It is dishonest to claim that alternative therapy can help cure patients. Yes or no, or not given. Can it help cure patients? Let's look at section A again. Can alternative therapists help cure patients? Okay, if you say no, you have answered correctly. Okay, because the question states, if the statement says it is dishonest to claim that alternative therapy can help cure patients. The answer is no. It is not dishonest to claim that alternative therapy can help you cure patients, because, as it says here, the writer is referring to illnesses that can get better on their own. And he also says some of the improvement really would be down to you. So it is not dishonest to claim that alternative therapy can help cure patients. It does help. Okay, based on the writer's references here. He's referring to illnesses that get better on their own, and some of the improvement really is up to you. So the answer here would be no. It is not dishonest to claim, because it is true that you can get well from alternative therapy. All right, number 3. Alternative practitioners always acknowledge the importance of the placebo effect. Okay? Alternative practitioners always acknowledge the importance of the placebo effect. Now remember what I told you earlier about qualifiers. Always acknowledge the importance. So is this yes or no, or is it not given? Okay, let's look for it in section A again. Section B, because section B from line 22 onwards talks about the placebo effect. So it goes all the way to line 75. So it's quite a long text to actually scan the information for. So starting from here, let me read the statement again to you. Alternative practitioners always acknowledge the importance of the placebo effect. Anything here? If not, let's move on. Anything here about alternative practitioners always acknowledge the importance of the placebo effect? No? Let's check here. Let's go back to the same section if you still can't locate it. Yes, no, not given. Alternative practitioners always acknowledge the importance of the placebo effect. If you say no, you are right. Now, why do I say that you're right? Because if you look at the same page here, it can't be true, because any mention of placebo is a touchy subject. Okay, for many practitioners of complementary or alternative medicine, and it is tantamount to a charge of charlatanism. Okay, if you don't really know what the meaning of charlatanism is, it might be worth looking up the dictionary for this, but it's not really. But if you look at the statement as a whole, it says that alternative practitioners always acknowledge the importance of the placebo effect. This cannot be true. Primarily because any mention of placebo is a very sensitive subject for these people, because they regard it as something that has to do with charlatanism. Now, what this means is that a charlatan, it comes from the word charlatan, and it refers to a person who pretends to have skills or knowledge that they don't have, especially in medicine. So anyone can come up and say, I'm a doctor, without any qualifications or experience or the knowledge. Yeah? So what this means here is that they do not acknowledge the importance of the placebo effect because it is related to fake medicine, if you like. Yeah, so that's what it means here with charlatanism. So that's a key word that you probably need to understand to be able to come to the conclusion that this actually is not what the writer means. The writer is saying here from his statements that alternative practitioners always acknowledge the importance of the placebo effect, and in fact in the text it says the opposite. They do not acknowledge the importance because they regard it as something that is fake. Okay, unfortunately we have to stop here for now because I think I've run out of time. It's been 1 hour, so we'll go with part 2 hopefully tomorrow. If you are tuned in at the same time. I'm not sure if it's recording on Facebook Live, but with my luck, probably it's not. So if you haven't been receiving this, if you haven't been following this, I will send you a link to this video. Alternatively, you can just check out my YouTube channel and have a look at a recording of this video. Okay, so I hope so far it's been helpful for you. We'll stop here for now and pick up from here in the next Ielts reading lesson. Okay, have a good start to the week. Bye.